Arriving here 3.5 years ago, I think I had the impression that there was a lot of scale of tech talent, but the thing that surprised me was the depth of the talent beyond technology. You know, for a GCC like ours, we need to hire medical doctors, we need to hire pharmacists, we need to hire commercial people, etc. And I wasn't prepared for the depth of the talent as well as the breadth. Whilst I said, you know, 1 lakh of medical doctors coming out of medical schools, I think there's a cultural element to that. That, you know, if you've spent 5 years in medical school, maybe your family expects you to become a hospital doctor. And, you know, coming to work for a pharma company, that's like selling your soul to the devil, right? And so we have to kind of give our people great career opportunities and market those career opportunities as medical doctors and specialists within a pharma company. The recently launched pill for obesity, which is making a lot of news in the United States. It's only available in 1 country, in the US. It was launched in January. The clinical data management, the biostatistics, the medical writing, the regulatory reporting, and the development of the entire submission for that American launch was done in Bangalore.
The GCC story in India has moved from scale to significance. But what does it actually take to build a center that influences global decisions, not just executes them? To explore that, in this episode of GCC Unplugged, we are joined by John Dawber, who leads Novo Nordisk India GCC, a center that's quietly redefining what capability ownership looks like in a global organization. John, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's a great opportunity. Thank you.
So, John, my first question, when you came to India, what did you misread about the ecosystem, and what was that something that really surprised you?
Yeah, and thank you. Yeah, so I've been here in India for about 3.5 years now, but in Asia for maybe 12, almost 15 years. Arriving here 3.5 years ago, I think I had the impression that there was a lot of scale of tech talent, but the thing that surprised me was the depth of the talent beyond technology. You know, for a GCC like ours, we need to hire medical doctors, we need to hire pharmacists, we need to hire commercial people, etc. And I wasn't prepared for the depth of the talent as well as the breadth. And the other thing, which again, I think this is rather unique to India, is the collaboration and the willingness between industry, academia, and the government authorities, frankly. You know, whether I've lived in the UK, I've lived in Denmark, in Japan, in Thailand, and here, never seen that before. So that's been a really enjoyable and interesting part, to be able to triangulate that for the benefit of everybody.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, the kind of STEM graduates that we produce every year, that's phenomenal, and that creates the entire, ecosystem of what is required inside a GCC, and we'll know more about it from you in a bit. So, your India Center has grown into a high impact sort of hub. So, what were the first 2 or 3, the most challenging questions that you had to solve when you came in here?
So I mean, the first thing, and it's probably similar for all of us in this in this GCC business, is being sure that we've got stakeholder trust. So in our case, the stakeholders are mostly in our headquarters in Denmark, some around the world. but very easy mistake to make for a GCC to overpromise and underdeliver.
Yeah.
And so the thing that we had to do was really be sure that we were delivering with quality, we were delivering on time, we were delivering better than another geography could do, and then understand, in our case, understand the customer. So understand, well, what's the requirement of the HQ person, and does that build trust? So that's the first thing. Second thing, a little bit linked to that, is quality and timeliness of delivery. So yeah, our GCC, it spans 17 functions. So everything from research and development through to IT and finance and commercial. And all of them are slightly different in their maturity levels. But we have to have a consistency of the quality that we deliver.
Mm.
And then maybe finally, I would say something around cross-cultural leadership. So I'm a little bit of a student of that because of the jobs that I've had over the last decade and a half. But training leaders to be able to lead cross-culturally, whether that's leading in India or leading US teams or leading Denmark teams or vice versa, really makes the whole thing work much better.
Yeah. I understand. That's a very important piece because you're working with people from different cultures. Something may not be harsh for you, but it could be harsh for someone else, so we have to be very sensitive about this. And then you're working across time zones, so you'll have to be very mindful of whom you ask to work at what point in time. So
you're right. I mean, the cultural thing is interesting. We're working for a Scandinavian company, where everything is direct.
correct.
If it's not said, it didn't happen.
Right.
Whereas, of course, in Asia, it's almost the reverse. And so bridging that is really important.
Yeah. So, you said 17 functions and all have to be at the same level to be, aligned for the car to move really fast, if I may put it that way. And a lot of GCCs talk about moving up the value chain, and I think this is one of the key ingredients to that. So, what does that really mean in context of Novo Nordisk?
Yeah, so for us, it means that the type of work that's done in Bangalore and the types of tasks that are completed in Bangalore are either equivalent to the tasks that are delivered elsewhere in the world, in the headquarters, or indeed in some cases they're owned in Bangalore and they're done nowhere else. And I can give you a couple of examples of that. So, we have a team of people who look after something we call pharmacovigilance. It's side effect reporting. So wherever you are in the world, if you have a side effect on a Novo Nordisk medicine and you report it to your doctor, 3/4 of the global caseload is managed out of Bangalore. And the people, we have medical doctors and PhDs and pharmacists there who are looking at those reports and saying, is this related to the drug? Is it not related to the drug? Do I need to report this to an authority? If so, which authority? Et cetera, et cetera. So that's almost full global ownership of pharmacovigilance, not only for our marketed medicines, but also our pipeline, the clinical trials that are going on. So that kind of stuff is quite complex. Another example would be the recently launched pill for obesity, which is making a lot of news in the United States. It's only available in one country, in the US. It was launched in January. The clinical data management, the biostatistics, the medical writing, the regulatory reporting, and the development of the entire submission for that American launch was done in Bangalore. So that maybe gives you some evidence of the complexity, if you like.
Yeah, that would be interesting. So, say if I walk into your, center today, what would convince me that, of course, it said that that one medicine which is making so much, so much of headlines, so many headlines. The entire process was done here. So if I have to be convinced that this is not just a support function but a core part of the global engine, how would it look like when I enter your office in Bangalore?
So I would hope that the first thing you would see would be people working cross-functionally.
Mm-hmm.
So I mentioned 17
17
functions,
yeah.
but the people are jumping between those functions to share information, to share data, to share learnings that moves projects along rather quickly,
Mm.
perhaps quicker than could be done elsewhere. Second thing, I think you would meet people who are not just talking about tasks
Mm.
and delivery and, in the worst scenario, ticket completion, but they're talking about value delivery. They're talking about getting things to the market faster. They're talking about impacting the market. They're talking about patient delivery. Those kind of stories is what I would hope would be filling the corridors in our office, which would be perhaps a bit different to what it was a decade ago.
Okay, so in a sense, you mean that people are taking ownership in
Correct.
what they're doing, and I think that fulfills their ambitions also to be part of the global organization and really own what they're doing. And talking of ownership, where do GCCs still not have your real decision power making still uh, in any part of the world?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, and we often talk about the importance of global process
Right.
ownership. Now, uh, yes, it's important, and there are some areas, perhaps in the early part of research and development, drug discovery, um, where that's very much held in the headquarters. Similarly, of course, things like corporate strategy and corporate financial planning would be held in the headquarters. And there's not a ton of work that our people do in that respect. But, and I think this is kind of the same for other pharma GCCs, what we often find is that we're democratizing work globally. So whilst you might not be the global process owner, you've got an equal voice and an equal seat at the table to your Denmark colleagues, your US colleagues, or your India colleagues. So I think there's some gaps in early research and development. There's maybe some gaps in corporate strategy, but the vast majority of functions are seen as peers to their to their colleagues in other locations, and again, that's some development.
Well, I'm sure they. I mean, it must be changing over time. It must have changed how it was probably 5 years ago and how it is. Even for you, I mean, 3.5 years when you came in here, have things changed from then to now?
Yeah, we see it, and our place is 18 years old now, and we've seen the development in a kind of an iterative way.
Okay.
So what in a pharma company, what you might see as the kind of low risk medicines that you might want to consider offshoring the work would be the old stuff. It would be what we call the life cycle management products, the products that have been on the market for 20, 30 years, something like that. They still need work doing. They still need some marketing. They still need some financial. They still need regulatory work. But we started with putting the life cycle management products, the older stuff, into Bangalore. But over the last 7-10 years, you gradually move up that sort of internal value chain. So now, as I mentioned, we've got work in Bangalore that's on the pipeline products, the things that are not even hit the market yet, that are collaborations with the headquarters. We've got ownership of some of the launch strategies, the launch pricing strategies, those kind of things. So yeah, over the last 3.5 years, you just see the complexity increase, and it's a little bit, because of skills and scale is how I talk about it. We're a funny company really because we're headquartered in a really tiny nation, so the entire population of Denmark is 5.5 million people. It's a third the size of Bangalore.
Right.
So as the company grows and you need, 100 medical doctors, 100 PhDs, etc., it's really hard to find them in your headquarters. Whereas here, Indian universities are delivering 1 lakh of medical doctors every year. So, the talent is there to be able to take on the complexity.
So, talking of talent, and you earlier also mentioned earlier as well that you were surprised by not only the IT talent, but the other parts of requirements that a GCC has. I'm sure we have enough, but I'm sure let's not be complacent. There must be something lacking which you have noticed and you wish that that could improve so that the entire value chain gets even more stronger.
Yeah, it's true. There's a couple of things spring to mind. Whilst I said, 1 lakh of medical doctors coming out of medical schools, I think there's a cultural element to that. If you've spent 5 years in medical school, maybe your family expects you to become a hospital doctor, and coming to work for a pharma company, that's like selling your soul to the devil, right? And so we have to kind of give our people great career opportunities and market those career opportunities as medical doctors and specialists within a pharma company. So that's maybe the first thing. Second thing I think is around, I mentioned this earlier, that the ability for academia and industry to collaborate, it is unique here, but we could do even more.
Yeah.
And, in our place, we've started to collaborate specifically with half a dozen or 10 universities where we are looking at co-creation of curriculums, so that the talent that we hire is kind of oven ready and plug and play a little bit more. So that's another thing. And then perhaps the third thing, and sorry, this is another little kind of cultural behavioral thing. Coming from a kind of a Danish company that's very flat, non-hierarchical culture, we really appreciate teamwork, cross-functional collaboration, and the us rather than the me.
Right.
And what we often find when we're hiring talent is that, we're in a culture where things are very hierarchical and people see each other a little bit sometimes as competitors. So we've got to be able to onboard people and find people that are ready to collaborate and work as a team, because, in a GCC, that's your power, to be able to bring all of those, in our case, 17 functions together seamlessly.
Yeah, so exactly, as I said, that all wheels need to be aligned so that motion is even faster. And you're right about the academia and industry collaboration. That has been something which we've been hearing since college, and still is a area that needs to be worked upon. But yes, much has been done, and I see a lot of GCCs also joining hands with the premier institutes to co-create curriculum, as you mentioned. But you talked about the cultural thing, about someone getting trained as a doctor, so you look at him as a doctor at a hospital, not at a pharmacy. You're exactly right. And so, is that a challenge in hiring today? And recently, I came across a report where especially the younger talent, the Gen Z and all, they are very, they move very fast across, organization. So is that a challenge, or you're designing an environment where you really can, hold them back.
So I think there's two parts to that. For sure, positioning the company as a great place to work,
Yeah.
both for tenured employees, but also for new grads, is really important. And over the last sort of 3.5 years since I've been here, we've put a lot of work into our external branding. People hadn't heard of Little Novo Nordisk
Yeah.
5 years ago, and they were confusing us with another pharma company. Now, I think our talent attraction machine is working better. But to your second point, one of the things that we've learned is that we have to create an environment where the 4 or 5 generations of employees that we have can all feel a value. It's not a one-size-fits-all deliverable. So for some people, um, academic development is important. For others, career development is important. For others, a purpose and getting involved in CSR, in patient engagement is important. For others, just having flexible working and having fun is important. For others, it's food. And, and and part of my job is to try to unlock that for our all the generations of employees and keep them sticky. Because you're right, if I hire somebody and then 2 years later they leave, that's not a great value add. Whereas if they leave one function and join another one, and then another one, and then another one, I've got a tenured person that's really adding value.
Right, right. And that I believe is very important, because the learnings from one segment to the other segment, it really is like a stitching together the entire piece. Yeah.
Yeah. And we got a number of those examples. I mean, one of our VPs who's just left India to head up our small but growing center in Mexico City. He started in IT.
Okay.
He then took those learnings into the quality function. Then he took another move into the people and operations, so HR function. And now he leaves and he sets up a GCC on his own in Mexico City. There's plenty of those examples, but it's important to be able to follow those career tracks or create those career tracks.
Absolutely. No, I come across these stories, and these are very fascinating, that how people can start, small, but become probably the leaders and lead the center, and probably lead global, go to global roles also. That's very encouraging, John. So, let me change the tack a little. So, you are in a industry which is very regulated across the world. So, innovation often, it's said that it's constrained if there are too many regulations out there. So how do you build a culture of experimentation, you know, around in your industry, wherein people do innovate but are within the boundaries of law?
Yeah. So, and I guess there are two interpretations of innovation. The first one you might think about is drug discovery and developing IP rights in India. Frankly, that's not an area we've got into yet. That's very much a headquarter function. But innovating within the boundaries, as you describe, is something that we do quite a lot. So there are 2 or 3 things that spring to mind. The first is to sandbox it, is to create environments where people can play and experiment.
So a controlled trial.
Exactly, yeah. So we have a team of innovation specialists in-house. Their job is to go and find use cases within the functions, and then figure out whether there's tools or ways of doing things better. The other thing we've done is work with academia, so with hackathons where we've given universities a problem. Frankly, they come back with better solutions than we could develop in-house. And the third thing is we've been able to to look into the startup ecosystem, particularly in India and in Bangalore, to look whether there's ways of partnering. And so, as an example, in our clinical reporting function, whereby we author regulatory documents, and that takes a medical writer a really long time. And then there is, as part of the quality checking, there was a second medical doctor checking it all. And so just checking one of these regulatory documents could take 40 hours. And we were able to find an innovation startup in Bangalore who could partner with us. It took a little bit of playing in the sandbox, but then we got it right. And the 40 hours per document is now down to 40 minutes. And the meaningful work of the very highly qualified medical doctor can be in the creation of the regulatory document rather than the... So there are ways of doing it. A lot of it is in process optimization. A lot of it is in making things quicker, faster, and more impactful, rather than perhaps doing, IP generation in India. So that's how we do it.
Yeah. No, that makes me very hopeful, is because we are the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, and we are the largest GCC hub of the world. So if these two forces really can come together, then infinite possibilities, I guess.
Precisely. I mean, that's just one example. We've also got a number of, we have an organization who are producing marketing content for 80 countries. So our omni-channel operations is based in Bangalore. And looking at how they are doing innovation, partnerships, looking at opportunities to make things faster, more impactful, utilizing data that exists somewhere else in the GCC to be able to impact a patient or a customer tomorrow is it's super exciting, and those partnerships just continue to develop.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be more and enough to come in the days ahead. So, John, when we talk about the overall GCC ecosystem, are we overestimating the maturity of the ecosystem, especially when it comes to product ownership and IP creation here in India?
Yeah, I think for us, I don't know whether we're overestimating the maturity, because we're so broad, and frankly, there's probably not a medicine launched anywhere in the world that's not been touched by Bangalore.
Okay.
So that's a pretty bold but big statement in terms of maturity. It's pivotal to the way the company runs. However, as I said, I think if we just use the sort of small lens of IP generation, then we've got some work to do for sure. Other companies are doing it, but most of our early research, early development is done and led by our Denmark HQ. There are many other examples of value creation, I think.
No, I'm sure. I mean, look at Hyderabad. I mean, in terms of pharma, if you look at, they're doing some phenomenal work out there.
Precisely, yeah.
So John, looking ahead, we are still, I mean, we don't want to be complacent, but we are celebrating that India is, every second day we hear a new GCC center coming to India, either Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, and newer centers, tier 2, tier 3. So the ecosystem is getting better, and hopefully it will become even more, robust. So what will separate, according to you, not only around pharma, but across the ecosystem, what will separate those at the top GCCs from others in the coming 5 to 6 years?
I think I think we've had like a 30-minute conversation. We've not talked about AI. This is the first time this year that's happened, right? So now I'm going to talk about AI. I think one of the things that might just separate a GCC that's going to really set themselves up for going forwards versus one that stagnates is where we embrace AI into every day. We actually rethink processes, embedding AI into them. So, you know, for me, I suppose I'm no expert in this, but for me, it seems, well, the easy thing to do is to try and put AI on the top of an existing process. But I think if we've got the courage and the confidence to say to the headquarters, hey, we've looked at this process, we think we can re-engineer it
Correct.
with AI, then we start to own the narrative, we own the delivery, and then we can progress further. If we ignore it, then someone else will do it for us.
Yeah.
And it's a real temptation, you know, when you're, in our case, leading 4,000 very happy people, to kind of be blind to it. But I think we've got to embrace it and approach it. And those that do that, I think will continue to succeed. And those that perhaps have a little less courage, maybe will be left a bit behind.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. So I was moderating a panel last week, and these were all startup founders. And a very interesting thing someone said is that let's not only look at AI as an efficiency tool, but let's use it to create more use cases where it can change the entire game. And that's what I believe the GCCs also need to do. And I think 60% of the work is already AI led or related, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, precisely. I mean, I'm genuinely, as a sort of as a human kind of leader, I'm not really interested in something writing my emails for me.
Right.
But I'm really interested in how we can re-engineer a process to get regulatory approvals faster, or to get promotional materials in the hands of a sales rep quicker. That makes a difference to patients. And that's the way to think about it, at least from my perspective.
All right. All right. Thank you, John, so much for sparing time and joining us. It was a pleasure speaking to you and understand how Novo Nordisk India Center is, contributing to the global mandate. And I'm really pleased to know that, as you said, that each and every drug that is there, there is a bit of Bangalore in it, in all of it.
Yeah. We don't do our Made in India stamp big enough, but it's there.
Is there?
Yeah.
All right.
So thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you for joining us.
So much. Thank you.